What is up guys, welcome to another video. In this video we will be looking at what we know thus far for Sons of the Forest. Let's get into it. So first off, we have realistic building mechanics and animations. So basically the devs have mentioned that it will be a more interactive experience. For example, if you want windows in your base of operations, you can actually carve it out yourself. In terms of crafting animations, for example, to place down a foundation, you'll have to split a log in half and then be able to place it down, giving us the sense of realistic carpentry. The devs have mentioned that it will be a more detailed and there will be more textures and rendering. So we look at tree chopping segment of the video and you can actually visualize how the tree is being chopped and the progress of it before it's being felled. So in terms of defensive walls, here you can also see another example of the realistic animations where you actually carve out the defensive walls yourself. Okay, so moving on to friendly NPCs. So as far as we know, there are currently two, Virginia and Calvin. So Virginia is the three-legged and three-armed NPC that can assist you based on maybe a certain scenario being met, so she can come onto your side and assist you. And in the video you can see that she has the ability to dual wield a shotgun and a pistol, so she can be very helpful in a fight. Moving on to Calvin, we know that he is a soldier, but due to heavy head trauma, he is mute now. But you can interact with him using a notebook. For example, if you want him to bring logs to you, you can just write it down on a notebook and he will get down to that task. One thing to note about Calvin is if he is mistreated, he can become very lazy and stop all his productivity. And if this does happen, I'm not too sure how you get him to become more productive, but there is an option to kill him off to remove him from your game session. Another thing to note is he's not OP, so any actual player in your world will definitely be more efficient than Calvin, but he is there for the solo experience. A funny thing that the devs did mention is that you can use him for moral support. For example, you can give him a radio and he can follow you around while it's playing music. Okay, so seasons. Now seasons, obviously you have your 4 normal seasons, but there will be drastic changes between your summer and your winter. So for example, in your spring and summer you'll be able to catch some salmon in the river and streams, whereas in winter you'll have to gather and store food because it can become scarce. For example, the berry bushes will have less berries in winter, and not only that, the enemies themselves in winter will behave differently and interact with you differently. For example, they will also have to try and survive, look for water sources because maybe the water sources have frozen over or there's no fish. So this can pose a challenge, a survival challenge, which is going to be exciting. Apparently the duration of the seasons themselves can be customized. When you are playing, you will see progressive. It won't just change it from summer to winter. You will notice changes along the way. So as far as the story is concerned, in the forest, the son that you're trying to rescue, Timmy, is all grown up now, but he does suffer from a mutation, it seems, from the trailers, and now there is a wrecked helicopter and you have to go and search for a missing billionaire. So it's a standard, your crafting, cooking and combat, and then your optional story. The devs did mention that the story can be completed in 10 hours if you so wish, and it's based in somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. Moving on to multiplayer, it is 8-player co-op. However, early access will only be available on PC. Smarter AI. This is going to be very interesting because it seems that the AI and the enemies is going to be very dynamic based on your decisions. So for example, instead of attacking you directly, they can tear down your base and steal your resources. So the enemies can remember things and how you behave toward them, forming a type of relationship, if you can say. They do experience fear, anger, and they do have some kind of religion, and they are enemies that possess a leadership quality. So those enemies have the ability to pass on their ideas and beliefs to the followers. It's much more different than a normal game where your AI sees a player and it attacks a player. So here you have enemies attacking you, and if they notice they are unable to win that situation, they will become tired and go into hiding. for another round. There's different or several factions within the enemies, so some don't like each other. So there is an option to starting a turf war. And for example, if you just want to kill enemies off, there might be a scenario where they start preparing against you, for example, wearing more armor. Okay, so there is a new mechanic in the game, 3D printing, which can be found in the bunker, and one of the items that can be seen being crafted with the 3D printer is a red mask, which allows you to blend in with the tribe. That could be possibly a story mechanic, I don't know, maybe. The different types of enemies. We have in the first trailer a giant hand, which we do not know the size of the rest of the body. It looks like one of the biggest enemies we've ever faced. Pale, faceless cannibals. These seem to live in the caves underground. And then there's these tall red masked brutes. Maybe we can consider them to be some sort of leaders that can influence the other enemies. There's fingers, and then there's what I call twice. So there's two versions. Moving on to new weapons and attachments. It looks like there has been a complete overhaul in the weapon system, such that weapons can now hold attachments. For example, the shotgun. We see the main character attaching several attachments to the shotgun, which is quite cool. What we know so far is the crossbow, handgun, modern axe, shotgun, taser gun. Taser gun is probably going to be a short-range, non-lethal weapon, mostly for intimidating and scaring away enemies. And the spear, as we did see with the new animation, is probably can upgrade it with the enemy's bones as well. So there's another, but there's bows, chainsaw, there's a shovel. We don't know if this is going to be a weapon or just purely for digging up the ground. There's an electric baton. This seems to be the option of dual wielding a torch and another weapon, for example a handgun or a knife. The Sons of the Forest is actually 4 times bigger. The island itself is 4 times bigger. That's what the devs say. And they mentioned that there's a ton of variation between the trees and the bushes and the ferns. So they made like the water sources, for example. It looks like a real water source. You can find animals at the water source. So that's pretty cool. There's more variance in the caves as well. 5 times more trees and ferns. Okay, that's pretty cool. So it can get quite overwhelming. I mean, if you look at the stats of the amount of trees and bushes in the forests, we're looking at close to 40,000. Whereas if you look at the Sons of the Forest, approximately a few million. So that's a huge jump in textures and trees and stuff. So yeah, that's all we know so far. I mean, it's looking good, guys. 4 more days. 4 more days to release from the recording of this video. And I did mention that I wanted my next video to be a gameplay video, but I just wanted to summarize what Sons of the Forest has to offer thus far. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you in the next one. Cheers.